Hey there, hey, it's your girl, Deja, and the host of Black and Wild, the podcast. Lately, I have been reminded of the goal I set for my younger self, college age Deja, who was studying history and anthropology, but wasn't quite sure what to do with those majors other than teaching. And I remember coming to the conclusion that I wanted to be a voice for people, places, or things that could not speak for themselves. I recently realized that subconsciously that idea has led me to work that involves me advocating for people and places. To be honest, I strongly believe that that's what led me to creating Black and Wild. There are voices and stories that some people want to silence or erase altogether. Now more than ever, I am thankful that I have created a space where I and others from underrepresented backgrounds can take up space. Sticking to the theme of the month, this episode features another badass woman, one of my first friends in Mammoth, Rachel. Rachel taught herself how to snowboard, she's hiked the JMT, and is an advocate for outdoor education for all. She herself has experienced the benefits of nature and music, both things that she has sought to provide for others as well. This episode will make you laugh, cry, and think about your own why. This episode is for all women, but especially trans women who don't always see themselves represented in outdoor spaces. Let's get into the episode.
Rachel, thank you so much for being on the
Deja.
podcast. I'm really excited to share your story with the rest of the world. And I'm really excited for others to get to know you. I think you're just like an all around badass person. But your story has also been so inspiring for me. And it's honestly been an honor to call you a friend all these years. You're one of my first friends here. And I'll let you also tell your perspective of how we know each other. But before I go on too far, do you want to introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and also anything about yourself related to the podcast that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Rachel Adelman, she, her pronouns. I've been working at Mammoth Mountain for 10 years, 8 years as a snowboard instructor. I've been really passionate about the outdoors, at least since high school when I started backpacking and rock climbing. And I am a transgender woman. I transitioned about 5 years ago, living here in Mammoth. And that's part of the story that I want to share today.
It's been 5 years. Time's gone by really quickly.
I know, right?
How do we know each other? You want to share?
What was it, 2018?
It was 2018?
2018, yeah, the summer of 2018. The Adventure Center, now called Willie's Adventure Summit. But when it was up at Main Lodge, the fires were bad that year. That was a Ferguson fire?
Yeah, I think so.
Ferguson
I know
fire.
I keep track of them all.
Yeah, right? I forget the names after a few years, but you know, that had significantly impacted folks in the valley, and they actually had to, I believe, close down all the employee housing. And so folks didn't have anywhere to go. And I think did you get on the yarts, and did you yarts it up over here?
Actually, I got it right over with friends who also had been evacuated. So for those who are not sure what we're referring to, it's Yosemite Valley. And yeah, it was some other friends that were also evacuating to their other destination and dropped me off. And I was able to kick it here with Joe for a little while.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, we worked together at the Adventure Center. Little rock climbing wall for the kids, you know, zip line, like mining adventure station, ropes course, you know, all that good stuff. And yeah, we worked together that summer. And I had met Joe, your husband, I think the summer before that. Yeah. So I knew you two separately, and little did I know that you had met and we're fostering a lovely relationship, which I'm so happy for you too.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, that's really neat. You're one of, I wouldn't say our few, we actually had quite a bit of mutual friends, but you've really been there from the beginning. So
Yes.
It's really special, and also was really great to have you at our wedding
through
too.
thick and thin, at
Through
the
all of
wedding,
our
through all of
changes
the
and
crazy cutthroat Settlers of Catan games. We're still
yes.
friends somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, we survived that.
Hmm.
Some friends have not survived
Hmm.
Catan with me and Joe.
Oh yeah.
Well, great. So that's how we know each other. You had touched on that you got more into the outdoors or started getting to the outdoors when you started backpacking in high school.
Yeah,
So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, where did you grow up
sure.
and were you with family? How did
Yeah,
you first start getting into the outdoors?
right. Yeah. So I grew up in central Pennsylvania, which is, I was in a suburban area, but we're really close to like a lot of rural game lands and stuff like that. So, um, growing up, the outdoors was like, walking on a nature trail around town or something like that,
Mm,
going to the New Jersey shore and camping in an established campground that was like a bike ride away from the coast,
okay.
and that kind of thing, when I was younger. When I got older, my dad asked me if I wanted to go backpacking with him. He had started backpacking, him and my mom, like in the late 70s with,
Hmm.
big Kelty or Jansport external frame packs and like in like
Mm,
jean cutoffs, with big clunky boots and like wool socks up to their knees and stuff. Like they showed me the
crazy.
pictures back in the day, and backpacked the Grand Canyon with the youth group that they ran and stuff like that. So
Cool.
they were pretty outdoorsy people. Did backpacking and camping at least to some degree, and then my father has been a cyclist all my life. So yeah,
Oh.
outdoor activity, not at like a high intense like competitive athletic level, but just like at a
Mhm.
recreational level, was woven through my upbringing. And then as I started getting into my early teens, my dad and I, we did a couple like overnight backpacking trips together. And yeah, I became interested in like going out by myself. And for me,
Mm,
it was a way to get some space from what was going on at school, maybe what was going on at home,
mm.
even like day hikes. Once I got a car, I would often like go out to the Appalachian Trail because I live pretty close to the Appalachian Trail. I could drive there in like 20 minutes
Wow.
and, just go for a hike for a couple hours. And that's actually how I got into rock climbing too, which was like my big love, my first like big outdoor passion that really consumed me was rock climbing. And it started because Pennsylvania's section of the Appalachian Trail is notoriously rocky.
Mm,
It's sort of like dancing across a jagged cobblestone street for miles. And there's one particular section near White Rock Acres and Boiling Springs in Pennsylvania,
mm.
where there's this whole ridge of rock, and you can sort of like scramble around and do some like bouldering and ridge running and even like
Wow.
some easy top roping. There's like a 40-foot face and stuff like that. And so
Mm.
when I was hiking, I just started scrambling all around like a lizard, um, like I did when I lived in Kenya. So rewinding a little bit, I spent a year in Kenya when I was 10 years old. My father's a college professor, and so
Oh.
the university that he worked at in Pennsylvania, had a sister college in Nairobi, Kenya, called Daystar University, and
Okay.
he accepted an offer to teach there for 2 semesters and brought along the family. So for the first semester, we were like in the city of Nairobi, like in the urban environment. Fond memories of like walking to the grocery store and like buying roasted corn on the street and stuff. Uh, Fighting with like neighbor kids using like sticks and stuff as toys. And the second semester, we moved out to the Athi River campus, which is a satellite campus of Daystar that's out on the outskirts of Nairobi near the mountains. And so
Mm.
basically, it's more arid than what you think of as like the savannah. Like when we went on safari in Masai Mara, it's like like swaths of grassland and stuff like
Wow.
that. But this is more of like an arid sort of like sub mountain. environment,
Hmm.
kind of like desert type plants, lizards running around, and I was homeschooled. So when I would finish my, my duties for the day, my learning for the day, I was allowed to just kind of like go out and explore and just like dig holes in the ground and shoot at lizards with a slingshot and just like just ran
Being a
around
10-year-old
Africa
kid.
being a 10-year-old kid.
Wow.
Yeah, like kind of like clambering over rocks and stuff like that. I remember enjoying that, but then fast forward back to high school. I knew I liked that kind of activity, and it came really naturally to me. So this is where I really started rock climbing. There was certainly some fall danger, but the things that I was doing was pretty casual, as far as like
Mm-hmm.
grades and actual difficulty levels. So my first rock
Okay.
climbing shoes were actually approach shoes, like hiking shoes with sticky rubber on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just kind of like, yeah, clamber around and just scramble
Wow.
around. And for me, that was rock climbing until I found the climbing gym. And yeah, where I
Mm.
lived in central Pennsylvania, like I tried skateboarding. I thought that was going to be like a fun thing to do all the time, but there was no skate park anywhere near where I grew up.
Wow.
Even like now, I think it's like a 2-hour drive to the nearest free skate park.
Wow.
There was like an indoor, like paid park with big features that we went to one time, and I was terrified of like the giant half pipe and stuff like that. And you had to pay for entry, or like buy a pass, and
Mm.
that was just like too complicated. That was too much. I was just trying to get started. So,
Right.
yeah, but there was a climbing gym like 20 minutes away. And so, I ended
Mm.
up going there after classes. I had an after school job. And I would go there like after work at 8 and then like climb until it closed at 10 and then go home. And yeah, that job is when I like bought my own backpacking equipment. I was working as a
Mm.
customer service agent for the Book of the Month Club,
Mm.
making like $15 an hour in 2005.
That's pretty good
In
in
as a
2005.
high school student. Yep,
Wow.
yep.
Yeah, entry
With
level
with no
position.
yeah. So like I bought all of my backpacking
Wow.
gear, all my climbing gear at that time, and that was how like I forgot my
Mm.
first setup. I remember
Wow.
browsing this catalog for this company called Campmore that I think is based out of New Jersey. They're
Mm.
like an East Coast outfitter, mail order outfitter, and they printed these like half size catalogs on newsprint, and I would like read them under the covers at night until my fingers were black from the newsprint, looking at the backpacks and the Swiss Army knives and the tents, and just like dreaming
Aw.
of the adventures that I could have. So that was kind of my entry point, and
Mm.
then when I was applying for colleges, I got a partial scholarship to CU Boulder, and I knew that to be like an outdoor mecca and
Mm.
a one of the best climbing places for climbing in the country.
Mm.
And so that's where I went to college, and
Wow.
maybe we'll kind of wrap up that part of the story there, and we can always talk more about how my relationship with the outdoors evolved more as an adult. But I think that's a pretty good picture of like where I was coming
Mm.
into things when I was 18 and starting to leave the house and strike out on my
Wow. This makes so much sense.
own.
There's a lot of your early story that I was unfamiliar with,
Oh,
honestly. And it all like I can totally picture you as this child running around, 10-year-old in Africa, to being a high school age student and
mhm.
getting your first job and then using that to get in the outdoors. Like that's totally makes sense that you have grown into the person that I know today. Just as far as your interests go and your passions, like that's it tracks. And I think that's really neat. So you went to Boulder, and how did you end up in Mammoth though? Can we continue that? Can we bridge kind
Sure,
of that connection?
absolutely.
Because I mean, I get what probably drew you here. I can see maybe the recreational opportunities, but yeah, what happened from college between then and now?
Many steps. Yeah, maybe two different lives were lived. I
Mm,
started out studying international affairs with a focus on Middle East policy and a minor in
interesting.
Arabic. And I wanted to solve all the problems in this world and prevent all the bullshit that we're seeing playing out right now.
Mm,
And I rapidly found that to be a somewhat overwhelming objective.
mm,
And that, as complicated as I knew that it was even more complicated to the point of you kind of can't make progress. Like it felt really frustrating and even more so like depressing and saddening studying the state of the world.
mm,
And I took some time off. I think I took like 2 years off. I worked restaurant jobs. I worked retail jobs. I was the shift manager at a Ben and Jerry's for a while.
mm.
I worked at an Urban Outfitters. I worked making pizzas in like a tap house that had all kinds of different beers. And I just kind of, I lived my life. And I had lived in a pretty small town growing up. My parents pretty conservative Christian. So a lot of it was just me trying to find who I was as an adult and kind of like
Mm,
find my way and find my people and stuff like that. So climbing was always there in the background. It was something I did with my friends. I think I always had a subscription to a membership at the spot climbing gym, which was like a bouldering only gym. I could go there and just climb by myself whenever I wanted to.
mm,
Um, and so climbing was kind of like always there in the background, and sometimes we'd go
mm.
on like hiking and camping trips a couple times a year
With your
um,
friends or with family?
with my friends.
Okay.
But I was also really interested and still love live music and going to concerts. So we
Mm,
were also going to concerts like every other week. I was going out to parties and having fun and just like getting the whole college experience and everything. So when I started looking to go back to school, and I had credits and stuff. Going to transfer my credits to a different major,
okay.
and I wanted to study something that made me happy because my previous major made me sad. I didn't want that, so I was like, what's always made me happy? Music has always made me happy. I've always been really
Mm,
passionate about music. Um, yeah, listening to music in my room just was really foundational for me, like really helpful through hard times, and
yeah.
was another thing that really helped me to like become who I was. And then just the like ecstatic experience of dancing at a concert with like-minded people. Um, I got so much out of that, especially
Mm,
at that time in my life. So I went into studying recording arts, and I wanted to work in the music industry. I wanted to work in live sound. I wanted to help put on concerts
mm,
and bring that experience to other people to enjoy. And it took me 4 years to get that degree. The last couple years, I was kind of like part-time student as well as a stagehand intern at the Fox and Boulder theaters in Boulder.
mm.
I was actually going to school in Denver at this point because they had the recording arts degree that I wanted. Boulder has a good music program for performance, but they don't have a lot of music technology going on,
Mm,
at least not at the time I was there. I don't know what it's like now.
okay.
So yeah, I was living in Denver, going to school in Denver, but then like a couple nights a week driving up to Boulder to help put on some concerts. And yeah, I
Wow.
did that for a couple years of my life. I did enjoy it. I got my degree in recording arts, and I had felt pretty cooped up in the city by that point. I was living in downtown Denver on Colfax and Spear, if anyone knows where that is, and it's pretty close to downtown. It's loud, it's busy, and after a few years there, I think 3 or 4 years there, I just started to feel kind of like overstimulated, and
Mm,
I wanted to be more connected to nature. The thing about Denver is everyone says it's such like an outdoor city, but you're at least an hour's
I was gonna say, yeah,
drive
45 minutes to an hour at the least.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to get to
Yeah.
Golden or something like that. And then like the parks are nice, but it's like you're not in the mountains. Like the mountains, they're over on the horizon. You can like just like barely see them over there. And so I was feeling like
Mm.
disconnected from nature, and I started planning this big road trip. I had never been to California before. I had always wanted to hike the John Muir Trail.
Mm.
Muir is a family name. My mother's maiden name is Muir, and her grandfather, moved from Scotland in the late 1800s. So we don't have any direct relation to like the famous John Muir that helped found Yosemite National Park and stuff like that. But
Mm.
my mom always had like a deep admiration of like what he contributed to bringing nature into like the cultural consciousness.
Mhm.
Um, and certainly, John had prejudices against Native people that he talked about. He certainly wasn't like a saint in all
Mhm.
respects, and I think it's important to call that out.
Totally.
But certainly a lot of people have been inspired by his story, and I
Yeah.
was at the time. So I planned this trip to hike the John Muir Trail
Mhm.
because I really wanted to see Yosemite, but I felt like it was trite and cliche to just like drive there. Like been thinking about it all my life, and then you're just like
Yeah.
beep beep, like
Yeah.
open up, please. I felt like I wanted, like I needed to earn it to really appreciate it.
Mm.
And so I planned my hike to go northbound, starting near Mount Whitney, so that I would finish in Yosemite. That would be this like pilgrimage,
That's
and
cool.
that's how I saw it in my mind.
Hmm.
And to go along with John's spirit, I planned to climb like the mountains that he was famous for climbing as side trips along the way. So Whitney is included in the John Muir Trail. He's often thought to have been the first person to summit that, but
I
it's
love
not
it.
official.
Mm.
The first white man, maybe.
Yeah.
But even that's not clear.
Yep.
I forget what one of the other party was, but of course there are many people walking around those mountains way before John got there, and I think that's really important.
Mm.
There's like a sub peak on the Whitney Ridge that is called Mount Muir. That's one of the 14,000-foot peaks. So I climbed that. I climbed Mount Ritter, which is near Mammoth here. That again, he's credited for being the first white person to summit. Um,
Mm.
the Actually, before I started the John Muir Trail, I went to Mount Shasta, and there's a John Muir route. It's also called Avalanche Gulch,
Oh.
and so it was kind of like tracing the steps of my clan brother. We're not related, but we're both in the same Scottish Muir clan, and
Mm.
so that was sort of the like part of the theme of this trip.
Hmm.
Um, in any case, I finished the hike. It took me almost 2 months. I spent like 32 days on trail and covered over 350 miles. So I did a
Wow.
significant amount of extra credit. I just really wanted to get like the whole experience and not just
Yeah.
like the cookie cutter, read it in the guidebook, 17 miles
Mhm.
a day, 14 days, like John
Yeah.
Muir Trail did it, check it in a box and turn away. I
Yeah.
wanted to connect with those mountains, and I really did.
What year was this?
That was 2016.
Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, it's been 10 years now.
It has. Yeah.
Wow. And what month did you start? Like, what was this period of time in the
Mhm.
year?
So it was June. I think it was the
Okay.
first week of June that
Okay.
I hiked Mount Shasta, or it was the last week of May, and then I started the JMT in June. But it was right
Okay.
around there, and then I finished like near the end of July. So it was peak
Cool.
wildflower season. The bugs were pretty bad, but I saw so many wildflowers, and I had these
Mm.
pamphlets that I had gotten from Spellbinder Books in Bishop when I was hanging out getting it was kind of like a last minute, but there's these pamphlets like the trees and plants of the Sierra Nevada
Mm-hmm.
and like the wildlife of the Sierra Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And I took those with me and tried to like identify as many plants and animals as I could along the
Cool.
way. And I'm so glad I did that. That was an experience that really helped me, just like helped me connect with with
Mm.
um, I want to say nature, but like more specifically, like this slice of nature that I hadn't experienced
Mm.
before. You know, I was seeing new trees that I'd never seen before. I had never seen a
Yeah.
white bark pine before. You know, I'd never seen a marmot before. Um, and so,
Mm.
yeah, it was, I think of it as making friends. One of the things that I like to say is that if you
Mm.
learn the plant's name, then every time you see it when you're walking
You're seeing an
on a
old
trail,
friend.
yeah, it's like you're seeing an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you know, like there's certainly an element of like fear in being out
Mm.
and alone in nature. But as I started to like identify more plants and animals, it was like there were friends around every corner. And I just started to feel like so comfortable and connected and just natural out there. Um,
Mm.
it was such a formative experience for me and cemented my love for this range of mountains
Mm.
and Bishop specifically. I stayed in Bishop. There's a hiker hostel called the Hostel California or
Mm-hmm.
THC down there. I stayed at I think 3 times while I was hiking, and I like the vibes so much. It's this cute little hippie place. It's got art
Yeah.
just all over the walls and everywhere, and you meet the coolest people traveling from who knows where, from all over the globe and all over the country. And after
Mm.
my hiking experience and going out to the coast to see the Pacific Ocean for the first time and
Wow.
going to the sequoia groves and just doing all the things that were on my checklist, I asked if I could stay at the hostel and do a work stay there. So
Oh.
that's how I got my foothold in the Eastern Sierra.
Okay.
All my stuff was still in a storage locker that I was paying for back in Denver. Um,
Mm.
and I had gotten my union card for the International Association of Theater and Stage Employees, the IATSE. I got
Mm.
into like my local union, and I was gonna, you know, take union gigs and be a stagehand, and
Wow.
you know, I had it all planned out, and I never went back. At least not until like May. I went back in May. I spent the whole winter here with just the
Wow.
stuff that I had brought me for the summer, and
Wow.
yeah, that's how I got a foothold here.
Wow. Well, happy almost anniversary,
Thank you.
like the JMT.
Hmm.
And it really sounds like this was a moment where you really got to know yourself better as far as like your passions go. You knew you loved music, and I think that's something that we were talking earlier. It's
Hmm.
obviously still a big part of you, but so
Absolutely.
is the outdoors.
Yes.
And that's something that's been such a pivotal part of just your life in general, a place where
Hmm.
you're able to find grounding, also find yourself, feel a little more
Hmm.
connected with the earth, with yourself, and also find peace. So it almost seems like that moment really like changed the trajectory, almost literally and metaphorically, of your life.
100%.
And I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I There were parts of your story I knew, but this has really been neat to piece it all together. So
Mhm.
thanks for
Of
connecting
course.
those dots for me.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's pick up where we left off. You pretty much were telling me how you ended up in the Eastern Sierra
Hmm.
after the JMT, but how did we get from that to you living in Mammoth
In
today?
Mammoth, yeah. So I was doing a work stay, and I was mostly spending my time climbing. I had a little bit of money set aside, but after a month or so, that ran out, and so I needed a job. And I started waiting tables at the Denny's on 395.
Mm.
And I remember that I was feeling anxious one day, and I needed a break. And my manager refused me taking a break.
Mm.
And I kind of doubled down and I was like, I have a disability and I'm asking you for an accommodation for this disability. You're not like, you're legally required. And all I'm asking for is like a break because
Mm.
I'm feeling like a bit upset right now and a
Mm.
little bit overwhelmed because of what this customer said to me.
Mm.
Um, and so he refused that, and he just never really treated me with much respect. And so I decided, hey, you know what? I've got a couple paychecks. I don't have to pay for room and board. And I quit on the spot and walked out. Spent another month climbing, and then it was like November ish, and I needed another job. So someone that I was climbing with said, well, you can always work at the mountain. And I'm like, what mountain? And
What? You didn't.
they're like, Mammoth Mountain. I'm like, what's that?
What?
And they're like,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
there's this big ski resort like up the road a little ways. I'm like, oh, that could be cool.
Okay.
I never thought about working at a ski resort. I don't really know how to like ski or snowboard, but
Mm. Had you not
maybe
skied or
that would be.
snowboarded?
Let's talk about that in a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I had snowboarded a couple times, but I had no
Okay.
idea what I was doing. And we can talk more about that. But yeah, I just knew Bishop, like world class climbing destination. I want to be here for the rock climbing. And then
Mm.
I found out that there was a ski resort from a friend, and I was like, oh, well, maybe that would be a cool thing to do in the winter. I can learn how
Mm.
to snowboard, get a free pass and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I started selling tickets at Eagle Lodge. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning to catch the 5:15 bus from where the
Wow.
old Sears is off Main Street in Bishop.
Wow.
And yeah, so I would get up in the dark. I would spend all day up in Mammoth. I would usually sell tickets to like 11 o'clock, and then it slows down, and they ask who wants to go home, and I'm like, I want to go snowboard. And like I just had my stuff in the break room, and I would go and snowboard until like 3 p.m.
Mm.
And then I would clock back in and I'd help the rentals department with their returns at the end of the day. Just putting skis back, sorting poles by sizes, buckling up boots, taking bindings off of snowboards, and stuff like that. So
Wow.
Eagle's a pretty small place. In the other lodges, like the departments are kind of more separate. But at Eagle, it was no problem for me to just kind of like float and do one thing in the morning and do something else in the afternoon and then just
Mm-hmm.
snowboard throughout the day. So then I would get home at like 6:30 at night or something like that, taking the 5 o'clock bus or whatever it is, and
Mm.
um, yeah, I don't remember exactly what the times are, but that's not important. And
Wow.
that's how I spent my winter. I was up there, I think, like 3 days a week, and then down in Bishop 4 days a week. Climbed a couple days a week, helped out at the hostel, and then on the weekends
Wow.
went up to sell tickets. Um, that season, the 16-17 season,
Mm.
was the largest season on record. Turned out to be the biggest season in Mammoth's history up to that point. Got
Mm-hmm.
absolutely dumped on.
Crazy.
I had never snowboarded powder before, and that's what lit the fire for
Mm.
me for snowboarding.
It's addicting
Was
riding powder for
yeah,
sure, especially
mhm.
on a snowboard.
Oh yeah, totally. Mhm,
Interesting. Okay, so now can we rewind a little bit? I meant to ask you this earlier,
mhm.
because we didn't mention snowboarding in your earlier outdoor adventures.
No,
So where did you go snowboarding for the first time?
yeah. So when I was, I think, about 12,
Mm-hmm.
we went to a church auction, like a charity auction, a silent auction at church, and my parents won a like free or not free, but like won a private lesson
Cool.
at the local ski resort. And there's some small hills in central Pennsylvania. There are some larger resorts like Big Boulder and Seven Springs, but near where I grew up, there's a little 300-foot hill with 4 lifts called Ski Round Top. And
Mm.
that's where I took the lesson. And snowboarding did not click for me. I could not stand up as I recall. I couldn't like hold the balance. I just couldn't do it. And I don't remember many details about this except for my takeaway that like my instructor was frustrated with me. I was frustrated with myself. I felt like I just couldn't do it. And so I came away with a sense that, yeah, I mean, I can see how this would be cool, but I don't think this is for me. It just did not click for me. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't move around. I couldn't strap in. I couldn't do anything. So I just remember, yeah, falling down a blue run and having a terrible time and never wanting to do it again. About 4 years later, my family planned a trip up to Vermont to visit my cousin. I've got an aunt and uncle, and their son works at Killington. And so we went up to visit them, and the parents just stayed in the lodge and drank cocoa, and the kids went out to snowboard. And my cousin Larry, he showed me how to like switch my edges. And so, and from what I remember, I don't know, like I had been more active, since the time I was 12. I had like had my growth spurt and like grown more into my body. And so my recollection is that I kind of just got back on a snowboard and it just kind of worked. And I was able to like balance, and then Larry showed me how to switch my edges, and I was making terrible windshield wiper turns down low angle blue runs and thinking I was like absolutely ripping it. But again, like it wasn't something that my parents did, nothing that my family did. It didn't seem accessible. It seemed really expensive. It seemed something that like other richer people did. And so yeah, it wasn't something that I really even like put on the table for myself or thought about pursuing at all. To me, I really liked the groundedness of rock climbing, that you just show up and it's you and the rock, and you don't have to like pay an entry fee. You just show up and it's just you and your shoes and Mother Nature. And I still really like that simplicity aspect of activities like that. So yeah, going to school in Boulder, I had friends who snowboarded, and I remember like hiking up a hill just outside of town, like a low angle, like green slope on a powder day, and absolutely like flailing and thrashing. And of course, my friends who like grew up taking trips to Whistler and Breckenridge, they just like straight lined through the whole powder field, and I was like having to hike through it and sweating, just like soaking with sweat. Like go down to the park where the skate park is and like build a little kicker and like try to go off a jump or something like that. In the quad, it would snow and people would like set up a picnic table and like go like snowboard on the picnic table. So like I was surrounded by snowboarding. And like I had bought a snowboard on Craigslist for $100 to be able to participate. But yeah, when I moved here, I think I had been snowboarding 5 times in my life. And I couldn't ride a run without falling. couldn't I couldn't really get on and off the lift with confidence. So I was still very much in like the beginner intermediate stage when I moved here. And yeah, I pretty much learned how to snowboard watching videos on YouTube, going up chair 15, and then like practicing coming back down to Eagle.
Wow. And look at you now. That's
Look at me
crazy. Oh, I have so many questions, but I feel like we need to wrap up and get to you moving here and you getting into the work that you're doing now for the mountain. So I'm assuming, well, I don't want to assume, how did you get into ski school and eventually being a snowboard instructor?
Yeah.
And also if there's some in between, you can fill that in too, but I was just curious because for someone who's self-taught mostly, how do you end up instructing other people on Mammoth Mountain of all places, a pretty world-known ski resort that Olympians come and train at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, um, I did another winter. I was still, I was still, so back up.
Okay.
That winter, I was at the hostel.
Okay.
And then in May, I left the hostel to live in my car.
Okay.
Living at the hostel, I saw so many people like making the dirtbag van life thing work. It
Mm-hmm.
was the first time that I had seen that kind of culture, and it really put the spark in my head that like this is doable. Like you can just take a tent and a hatchback and just like go
Yeah.
fucking camp. And so I spent like the whole spring just snowboarding, living
Wow.
on the scenic loop and snowboarding. Um, that summer, I went up to go on an attempt of Mount Rainier with a PCT hiker that I had met. When I was up there, my car broke down, and I ended up not being able to leave the area. And my friend reached out with a job offer to work on a weed farm. And so, like, I lived on the farm, I worked on the farm all summer, and then I bought a truck. So, with the truck, I set out on a big road trip down the California coast. My goal was to play my new ukulele at every beach in California. So I started at Crescent City, and every
Okay.
time there was like a right turn coming down like the Highway 1, I would go and I would play my ukulele. And
Aw,
eventually I got good enough where I was like playing for money and, like made a few $100 in Santa Cruz. I was there for a week and
nice.
I was trying to like make it sustainable, like where the ukulele would fuel the truck and just like
Mm.
perpetuate the trip.
Wow.
So this year, after the big year, it was a slow start. And I was looking at the snow forecast, and the mountain had like a foot of snow in December or whatever. And December is actually a
Mm.
pretty nice time to be on the California coast. And
Okay.
there are some storms that come through, but it's pretty temperate
Okay.
on the coast, pretty temperature stable. And you get these kind of moody clouds that are super beautiful. So I was in no rush. Eventually, I made my way down to Pismo Beach. This was 2018, so um, the tragic and deadly Montecito mudslides had just happened, which meant that the road to Santa Barbara was completely closed, and all
Mm.
traffic, all trucking, everything was rerouted through Bakersfield. And so I was like, if I got to go to Bakersfield to get to Santa Barbara from San Luis Obispo, I'm just gonna call this as like the trip is over. From Bakersfield, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump back to Bishop.
Yeah.
And so I was like back in Bishop, um, camping across the highway. Um, sorry, I was back in Mammoth, camping across the highway by the geothermal plant. Like 2 days
Mm.
later, and I drove up to Main Lodge, walked up to the ticket counter. Um, my manager from the previous season was there. I was like, "Hey, Jeremy, do you have a job for me?" He's like, "Yeah, you start tomorrow."
Wow.
Um, and so I
Sounds like
sold
Mammoth.
tickets at Main Lodge that year instead of
Okay.
Eagle, and I lived in my truck and I camped out. Yeah, mostly like across the street near the geothermal plant, and
Nice.
a lot of times they had me posted over at what was called Woollywood's at the time, but which is now Main Kids, which is
Okay.
just the main lodge ski school counter that's on the first floor of the gondola building.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was dealing with like ski school products, selling lessons, and I just started to see instructors in their cool blue uniforms, and like walking around in their snowboard boots and getting to work outside. And I saw it
Yeah.
as a way of improving my skills. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that they offered trainings and that there was this like tiered certification system to like work your way up, make more money, and also act as like sort of a benchmark for your skills.
Mm.
And my big goal with getting into snowboarding was to be able to snowboard in the backcountry. As a rock climber, um, I had gotten into more mountain climbing and more like snow mountaineering, and I wanted snowboarding to be an extension of that.
Mm.
But I recognized that I didn't have like a lot of skills in the snow space, and that I didn't have very expert control over my snowboard. Um, and I mean, I don't want to go out there and kill myself.
Right.
I don't want to like not be able to turn and then hit a tree or something like that just because like the snow is in like a weird condition. Like
Right.
I was like, I got to be good if I'm going to go out into the backcountry. Like no ski patrol. Like I got to be solid. So I was like, yes, ski school will teach me, and if I get to the point where I'm like level 2, those people are pretty good. Like once I'm at like riding like a level 2 instructor, I think I'll be like really solid and comfortable, confident, and be able to get into the backcountry. So that was my main motivation to get into ski school, was to improve my own skills through the trainings that were offered in the department, and also to work outside in the mountain environment, because I'm very much a person that thrives outdoors, and I like moving. I have ADHD, so jobs that keep me active and moving really resonate with me. So, after that kind of shorter season where I started later in January, worked at Main Lodge. The next year, I was still living in my truck, and I applied for ski school.
Wow. And so you applied for ski school. What level are you at now?
I am
Your
a level
certification.
2
Okay, so you're
certified
officially level
instructor.
2.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've taken the level 3 ride exam twice, and
Okay.
I've done well, but I haven't passed.
Mm-hmm.
I did pass the technical understanding and movement analysis portion,
Okay.
but some of the steep riding fundamentals, I'm not maintaining as much upper body separation from my lower body as much. And so sometimes if I'm not being really careful, like my chest will open up to face down the hill at the bottom of my hillside turn, and I need to go all the way across. At the level 3 level, they're looking for a very stable upper body that's completely committed to the downhill direction, with the lower body just moving underneath of it. So the fact that my upper body would kind of like open up at the bottom of the turn, and then I'd have to go back across. It's a subtle thing, and it's a very natural thing for the human body to do.
Right.
But that was something that I needed to work on a little bit, that kept me from passing, as well as I just didn't have a super good run in the switch black bumps. I couldn't find my rhythm, and I've had some really good runs. I'm pretty good at riding switch bumps, but just like didn't have a good showing that
At
day,
that time, yeah.
which happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now. And this year I'm going for a freestyle specialist exam, as well as I think children's specialist exam.
Nice.
So instead of just trying to push upwards and upwards, I'm kind of like branching out and trying to broaden my base of knowledge as an instructor. And I think that will just support me working towards level 3 in the future.
Wow, that's so cool. No, that's so dope. It's been really neat over the years just hearing about how these certifications have been going for you, and also you really being intentional, putting in the time and effort to improve. And that's really cool hearing what your goal was when you first applied to be a part of ski school, or even had this idea to even pursue that opportunity and where that could take you. So have you been in the backcountry much? Have you actually like started to mountaineer during the winter time?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to have like a more regular partner to do if I was doing really like more serious objectives.
Yeah.
But I did split board Whitney's Mountaineer Route solo
Cool.
in 2019, I think. And yeah, that was kind of like a big landmark for me. Um, Most of the
Mm.
split boarding that I do is pretty casual. Um, I like to get out there as much as I can, but the last couple years I've been a full-time supervisor, and I really haven't done much split boarding. On top of my back injury, I've been a bit worried about it. You have a pretty big pack on and kind of like thrashing through deep snow
That's
sometimes. So
uneven. Yeah.
yeah, I was a little bit hesitant
Yeah.
to push myself too hard because of my herniated disc and the back issues that kind of kept resurfacing. So, um, yeah,
Mm.
I'll be honest in saying that I haven't done as much of it as maybe I envisioned. I wanted to do, I think, like 5 or 6 different 14ers on my snowboard.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, there's a number of California 14ers that kind of have like better winter routes than the
Mm.
summer routes will be like really loose gullies full of scree, but then
Hmm.
in the winter it's just like a perfect little chute, and you just ride right down.
Wow.
Um, but I just like the connection with nature and the exercise, and I don't feel like pushing my limits or feeling unsafe. Um,
Totally.
I
That's
mean,
so healthy.
yeah, I don't know. Like some people like to, build big jumps in the backcountry and like try new tricks or like cliff drops and stuff like that. But for me, it's more about the connection with nature and not about pushing my limits. So I see it a little bit differently now.
Mm.
I always wish I was split boarding more. I got a new split board this year that I really like,
Nice.
and I've been split boarding a couple times this year, which is already more than I have I think, the last 2 years combined, maybe. So
Nice.
yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I'd always like to do more backcountry. The
Mm.
access here is pretty good, but it's not like all time great. You have to walk quite a ways up Lake Mary to get there.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the Sherwins are pretty good, but the best access is boot packing it around from the back, and not necessarily
Mm.
like split boarding up the front
Mm.
of the foothills. So yeah, it's just a little bit different, but I really like my split board, and it's something that I wanna, yeah, I continue doing forever.
Wow. So many questions. Okay, I have two questions, and the first one is, what do you think younger you, would think of the person that you've become today, and like where you're at, what you've achieved?
Hmm. I think the first thing that they would say is like, "Wow, you have boobs."
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was like, wait, I don't know what age to go, but I'm like, whatever younger you comes to mind. Like, let's go with it. I love that. That's so fun. You don't think younger you would have seen this transition that you've gone through? Like that's something you would have potentially considered, or yeah.
Wasn't even on my radar um,
Mm.
until I had a big realization looking at a gender swapped photo from Snapchat that me and my girlfriend at the time had taken
Oh.
in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked very similar to each other. And I had this realization of like, oh, I think I want to be her more than I actually want to date her. I think this is what I've wanted
Mm.
all my life. And it was this
Mm.
like someone hitting a gong, just like deafening thought that drove everything else out of my mind. And
Mm.
I I couldn't help but just realize that I was not really the person that I needed to be at that point. I had been
Mm.
looking for something when I was traveling and hiking and like living in the truck. Like I felt like
Yeah.
I was kind of on a spiritual quest in some
Mm.
kind of way. Um, And just like the old cliche, like the thing that I had been looking for the whole
It's
time
within
was
you.
right here, was inside me the whole time.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, looking back, certainly there were lots of like signs where I would like steal my mom's razor from her closet and like shave my legs in secret in the winter so I could wear jeans and no one would know. But it wasn't like I'm doing this because I'm
I
a woman,
know,
because
yeah.
I'm trans. It's like,
Yeah.
huh, I wonder what that feels like. It was all very unconscious and just like playing out of my subconscious without ever understanding why. And honestly, there was like a lot of shame around it. I was teased for being perceived as like feminine, and like there were a lot of like homophobic slurs used against me in my middle school and high school years that I think made it hard for me to really accept or even contemplate that that me being trans could be a reality. Growing up as a kid in the 90s, I knew that there was like some people have a sex change sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it wasn't something that I ever entertained as like a possibility for myself. I just kind of assumed that like people like that always knew. And I had no idea about all the mental gymnastics that very frequently go along with being trans and like masking it from yourself and in your conscious mind. It becomes a situation where your brain is kind of like constantly deceiving itself, and then that becomes normal.
Mm.
Um, and so I always felt kind of like disconnected from my life. Um, but I thought that that was just like normal depression and anxiety. Um, and I like struggled to find like a sense of self um, in college. Like try on kind of like different clothing styles as you do, and just like I never
Yeah.
really felt like I was always kind of still looking for who I was, but it never once occurred to me um, that I could be transgender. And I didn't even know about um, transgender people transitioning as adults until like late in college, when Laura Jane Grace from Against Me came out. Who's a musician that I had listened to earlier. She's in like a punk hardcore band that was
Mm.
popular in among my friends in high school, and so that was like, yeah, that was the first time that I was even really like aware that that existed. Trans just wasn't in my mind at all for the first like 3 decades of my life.
I mean, one, you're living in Pennsylvania, so I've
Real,
never been there, but I can only
so
imagine.
real. Yeah.
And then two, it sounds like you grew up in a community that was very religious. And three, also just the time. I mean, I even remember when I was in high school having friends who were queer and there being, I mean, honestly, anybody who was different was immediately judged and put into whatever category that people assumed that they deserve to be in. And hearing all these really hurtful slurs at my friends, and it's just there wasn't as much open dialogue around being different than the societal norms or what is like, socially acceptable.
Definitely not.
I mean, it's like I don't really remember hearing stories growing up in the 90s, early 2000s of people transitioning, being transgender. I mean, it was like, yes, I think that we heard of drag queens, but that wasn't always something that was
Mhm.
talked about very much. And that was very taboo. And it was always like, there's something wrong with that person. You know, it wasn't something that was celebrated. And
Mhm.
so, of course, it almost sounds like, and feel free to correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, but it almost seemed like a lot of the internal dialogue you were having was from like the societal,
Oh,
like
definitely.
what you were hearing from your community or the people around
100%.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, because it didn't seem like you would want to talk to yourself that way. I feel like a lot of that was something that you kind of internalized. I mean,
Sure.
like, I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that, but I'm really glad that you're where you're at now. And I feel like it's it's like it almost feels like this is you're able to fully authentically be yourself in a way that I haven't seen you ever just show up and just own yourself. And like the way that you walk into rooms now, it's just like it's it's really special to see. And I always had felt like there was a part of you that was holding back and I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And I mean, you didn't even know, obviously,
Exactly.
still
Yeah.
either.
Hmm.
So I'm really, really excited for you. Um,
Thank you.
so through this time, though, it sounds like you kept seeking nature, whether it was through your
Mhm.
childhood, your adult life. And I was wondering, what do you find in nature? Like, why do you keep being drawn to
Mhm.
being in nature and like almost disconnecting from the rest of the world or like regular life, whatever you want
Mhm.
to label you want to put on it. But I'm almost noticing that's a common thing, and I'm just curious, what does being outside in the outdoors and nature, whatever form that is, what has that given you? Is there like
Yeah,
a constant thing that's given you over time?
that's a good question. I'm not even sure if I completely know myself. Um, but I would say one thing is like a sense of peace.
Hmm.
Um, you go out on a hiking trail or just in the forest, and the the quiet, like just the stillness and like the peace of
Yeah.
nature. Um, and with my anxiety and ADHD, my head is always spinning and like thoughts racing through my mind. So I think that just calming and
Mm.
grounded, like very literally grounded atmosphere, um, is something that I've found really powerful. When, like I mentioned, when I was, um, feeling bad about things at school or at home, going out to the hiking trail was like my safe space where I could go and just get away from all of that. And I think that it's still that for me,
Yeah.
the place where I can go to clear my head. And um, I have felt like I have learned more from Mother Nature than probably any single person in my life. That she has shown me so much
Mm.
truth and beauty, and like Mother Nature is my muse. Mother Nature is my guru. Um, and every time I go out with intention, like I learn something new about myself, something new about the
Mm.
world. Um, One of John Muir's quotes, and I'm paraphrasing, is like, if you want to know the news, don't open the newspaper, go into the mountains, and you'll find out like the real news. And obviously, he's not being literal. He's not talking about current events and
Right.
stuff like that.
Means you're gonna know what really
What's
matters.
really up? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love
And,
that.
and so I think that's a big part of it for me too. Um, yeah, just
Mm.
being around beauty. Sunsets and sunrises are some of my favorite things in the world. And
Yeah.
being able to park my truck in places and then like wake up with a cup of coffee to just the most beautiful sunrise on the Sierra, um, was one of the things that I loved the most about my time living in my vehicle. I mean, there's so many other things that I could, talk about, as far as nature. It's something that I took for granted.
Hmm.
Like when I was thinking about going back to school and wanting to do something that I loved, it never even occurred to me to like try to go into like outdoor recreation or something like that
Mm,
at the time. I had taken an environmental science class and found it like somewhat interesting, um, but I didn't feel like a strong pull to move into a direction of like studying that as a major. But I have gotten more fulfillment out of my time as a snowboard instructor, just seeing it as a lens to introduce people to respecting and recreating in nature in a way
mm,
that like honors the environment and honors our bodies. Um,
mm.
that it's hard for me to see myself doing anything else in the short to medium term. I want to stay in outdoor education, no matter where I end up after this winter season, to just continue spreading that joy and appreciation and like reverence for nature that I feel is so important. And,
Yeah.
and that's where conservation starts is um, you know, with our connection to the
Yeah.
earth and caring about it and understanding what it means to us on an individual level as well as like on a societal and cultural level. And yeah, I
Yeah.
just think it's so important and unfortunately overlooked, you know, both by myself for some time I took it for granted. And I think a lot of people still do. It's just kind of like take nature for granted. I heard someone once say, like, someone asked me why I care about the environment so much. And I just answered, because I live there. And then, you know, the story
That's a
goes
good
that, like,
one.
the dumbfounded look on their face, like it had never even occurred to them. I think there's a lot of people like that in the world, unfortunately. And that
Yeah.
a lot of the issues that we're seeing in society, that um, the societal disconnects, different classes and cultures that don't want to get along. A lot of that is because we're so like disconnected from the earth and not grounded in nature and not grounded in like a sustainable way of living.
Yeah.
Um, that is something that we really need in our society. So that's why I felt so much fulfillment out of working in outdoor education as a snowboard instructor.
Yeah. Yeah. Because who knows how you're planting that seed for other people to
Right.
find the peace and also the grounding that you found. I also wonder, as you were speaking, if I'd read, I think I had come across this quote when I was doing interpretation in Yosemite,
Mhm.
and it was, so I was studying for a night sky program, but it was pretty much like, I think it was 80 something percent of people in the world live in or near an urban space. So that
Mhm.
means they're dealing with light pollution, sound
Yeah.
pollution. I mean, and so we're getting further and further away from being able to be present and connected with nature. And that's why whenever I lead snowshoe tours out of Tamarack, I always, or no matter what group I'm leading out in nature, whether it's kids or adults, general public, I always make us have some quiet time where
Mhm.
we just sit, even if it's just for a minute, because I'm like, just stand still. Just let's just be present. Because how often are we giving ourselves permission to do that? Because we're so used to having to tune everything out,
Mhm.
because of all these extra sounds
Mhm.
that aren't really appealing or natural for us. And so it's been really neat to see people's reactions after having that moment.
Mhm.
Like, otherwise, when do you allow yourself to do this, right?
Totally.
So thanks for touching on that. I was like getting chills as you were speaking and describing what nature has brought you, because
Mhm.
I resonate with so much of that too. Um, I was wondering, with your experience, especially with you transitioning
Mhm.
and just going through this personal journey of like really finding your true self
Mhm.
and your identity, how has that been like? One, working in an industry where there is not a ton of representation, it's very
Sure.
male, cis, white, hetero, male dominated
I
industry,
agree.
and also living
Mhm.
in a rural mountain town.
Right.
Like, what has your experience been like? Have you been able to find community?
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit of that with me?
Sure. One of the hardest things has been access to services. Um, when first started transitioning, I considered moving to San Francisco for my transition to be closer to gender care providers.
Hmm.
We have a great hospital here, but they don't do anything like gender care. So I've
Yeah.
had to do all of that remote. First, I started with a place in San Francisco, and now I'm seeing some folks at USC Keck in LA.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, access to services like laser hair removal. I've got a referral. It should be free, but there's nowhere within 5 hours that I can drive to go use that referral, and it's only good in the state of California. So I've just
Wow.
been driving up to Reno and paying out of pocket because
Wow.
that's cheaper than driving 5 hours to LA and getting a hotel. Because
Hmm.
I don't want to do LA there and back in a day, plus an
Yeah.
appointment. Like, hell no. So that's been pretty tough. Um, I will say that I have felt pretty supported and like respected. When I showed up to the job interview with my managers 3 years ago now, and said, um, I'm Rachel. I'd like to continue with ski school in a supervisory role because I had had a back injury a couple years prior, and I was trying to find something where I could, still follow that passion and like spread that appreciation for nature and um, like moving through nature.
Yeah.
I really like outdoor activities, and so um, that there wasn't ever a question or like a sideways glance or like a weird look. They're just like,
Wow.
that's great, Rachel. Now I will
Aw.
say that over time I haven't seen it go much deeper than that surface level acceptance.
Mm.
Um, I don't always feel like people really want to be my friend as much as they want to be seen appearing supportive of the local trans person.
Mm.
Um, and when it tries to like go deeper of like, let's be friends and let's hang out, that there's always excuses that come up and get in the way. And so certainly uh,
Mm.
some of the allyship has felt fairly performative,
Mm.
but um, I will say that there hasn't been a significant amount of like aggression or hate directed towards me, either in the course of my job, in guest facing roles, or just like around town, getting groceries. Um, every once in a while, I will get like a weird look, and depending on how I'm feeling, I'll either like stare him back and stare him down, or I'll just sort of like ignore it and like kind of stare off into space. I had one guy like spit on the sidewalk while he was walking past me, while making eye contact with me. Um, that was probably the
Mm.
most like aggressive interaction that I've had in town.
Mm.
So I'll count my blessings there because it can certainly get much worse than that. I am fortunate and privileged that I am like thin and white and fairly conventionally attractive, so I don't always get like the target on my back that some other people that don't conform as well to like societal beauty expectations do. So I want to acknowledge my privilege as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as far as the work transition, we had been brought into the Altera network, and we're
Mhm.
part of like a big corporation with strong DEI protections.
Mhm.
And we started getting like DEI trainings mandatory in HR at the start of every season that like talked about transgender people and microaggressions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe this could be okay. And that's when I decided to put aside my plans to move to the Bay and just see if I could make a go of it here.
Okay.
It's funny, I was walking around the block and stretching my legs and just kind of doing my daily walk um, through the residential district in the middle of town, and I was walking past a little garden that had like little pinwheels, like wind chimes and wind socks, just one of those like whimsical little gardens. And um, the homeowners had put this sign there that um, really sparked some thought in me, really got me thinking. It said, "Bloom where you're planted. Bloom where you're planted."
Hmm.
And I took that to heart. I saw that like as a message. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I am going to try to bloom, where I've put down roots right here. And we'll see if that works.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, access to care has been tough. I see all my doctors virtual. I have to drive like 5 hours one way just for like a consult to get the surgeries that I've been working towards. So yeah, that's certainly been difficult. But
Hmm.
a lot of the things that I was really scared about, like being like heckled on the street or being like violently accosted or something like that, have not come to pass.
Thankfully, I'm glad. I have a friend who's gay and he lives up in Mammoth City but works in Levining, and said that, and like periodically he'll dress in drag, and he said that he's experienced some violent acts towards him, and I was really disheartened to hear that, because I wasn't necessarily surprised given the location,
Right.
but still I don't want that to happen to anybody. And like you said, yes, I guess you should count your blessings that you haven't had anybody attack you physically, but still, like, you don't deserve any hateful treatment at all. No one deserves that. So I hope that that doesn't come to fruition at all either. I think that Mammoth is unique in the sense that we have so many people that live here that are not from the area, are
Right.
usually from bigger cities or
Mhm.
just areas that are more diverse, because we attract a lot of people from like the Bay Area and especially Los Angeles and San
Right.
Diego, Southern
Mhm.
California.
Yeah.
So
I do think it's
I
probably
think that
one of the
helps
most diverse mountain
for
towns,
sure.
but mountain towns are not diverse, as
Exactly.
a category,
Yes. No.
So yeah,
There's
that
definitely not
that
much
diversity
representation.
looks like 5 to
Yeah.
10% or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I think the kind of folks that are drawn here at least
Mhm.
have been exposed to some other experiences, or at least people from different walks of
Yeah,
life. So
totally.
I think that helps to an
Mhm.
extent.
Yeah.
And that's coming from being a Black woman that
Mhm.
doesn't see much representation here either.
Absolutely.
Um,
Mhm.
well, thank you for sharing what your
Of
experience has
course.
been like, because I don't think that is shared enough,
Mhm.
especially in the snow industry, let alone
Mhm.
in rural mountain towns.
Mhm.
Um, how about finding community? Do you feel like, has your community evolved? Has it changed
Mhm.
from before your transition to now? Has
Mhm.
that been, because you kind of touched on having a hard time really developing meaningful friendships and connections with folks. And
Mhm.
so I was just curious if you could touch on that a little bit more, of what that has looked
Mhm.
like. Because we kind of touched on it a little bit
Mhm.
earlier before our conversation started, before we started recording. But
Mhm.
if you could elaborate on that further, of like, what has community looked like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started transitioning, I kind of went through like a cocoon phase. Like I didn't really want anyone to see me. Um, and I was sort of living like a double life. I
Mm,
was moving my physical presentation in a more feminine direction, but it wasn't really clear to me like how far I needed to go to be happy. So I was just trying to, like take small steps and just find out who I was. Um, I started identifying as non-binary to give myself some space
Okay.
um, to just find out who I was. Um, at home, I would often, dress as a woman and present as a woman, and um, I was just kind of trying to find out where I sat within that space.
Okay.
This was shortly after COVID, and during the first couple months of COVID, I was drinking too much. I was coping with stress and with nothing to do by having several drinks every day. Wake up with a Bloody Mary, have a beer for lunch, have a couple cocktails after dinner. And after a couple months, it kind of escalated. I was having at least 5 drinks a day, probably. I had like a little bar with like different liquors, and I just got sick of it, and I poured them all out one day, and I quit alcohol cold turkey for 3.5 years. Um, and a big part of that was that I had recently realized that I was trans, and I was realizing that I had been
Mm.
using drugs and alcohol as a way to distract myself from that discomfort um, that I just could not bear within my body. And so I put that aside in order to focus on my personal growth and keep myself from using it as a crutch.
Wow.
Most of my social relationships at the time were based around alcohol,
Mm.
which is very common in mountain towns, this one included. And so, in a lot of ways, I feel like I lost all my friends during that period. I was retreating into myself to find out who I was. I had taken away the social lubricant that was kind of the cornerstone of basically all my social relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the vast majority of those social relationships were with, like, I don't know, dudes,
Mm.
and um, yeah, just people that didn't really resonate with the feminine direction that I was moving
Hmm.
in. So after s- went to I went to the Bay Area to be a backpacking instructor for the YMCA, and things in my personal transition were getting to a tipping point where I was always happier at home, being myself, being Rachel, and
Mm.
I couldn't really imagine a way forward that was anything else from that. So my
Mm-hmm.
first interview with the YMCA, I used my initials and presented as non-binary. But then the next one, I showed up as my true self, and I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm Rachel, and I would like to come work for you in the YMCA, but I needed you to know who I really am." And so
Mm.
I went. I left town as a non-binary person and showed up in San Francisco as a trans woman. And um, and my identity never went back. When I came back, I was presenting female full time. I came out at my job for the town of Mammoth Lakes as a trail host, and I felt like really embraced and accepted. And after that summer, a new local to Mammoth LGBTQ group cropped up called Mountain Queers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I went to the first one of those gatherings. One of the first times, like going out into a social situation, and not just like at my job or running errands or like at the house, but
Mm-hmm.
like deliberately putting myself in a social situation as a trans woman, and trying to find community with like the local LGBTQ group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And that's when I had my first drink in 3.5 years to celebrate how far that I had come,
Mhm.
and like celebrate coming together with community. And so
Hmm.
I do drink alcohol occasionally now, but it's more of like a couple times a month at a function where it's served. Um, yeah, I'll have a drink, maybe two.
Mhm.
And it's something that I don't ever want to feel like alcohol has control over me. I want to feel like I have control over alcohol, that I can
Mhm.
just have that one drink. But I still have those tendencies and those thoughts of like, you've had two drinks, you should have two more. You'll feel twice as good.
Yeah, the slippery slope.
And we
Yeah.
know it doesn't always work out that way,
No. It's never just one or two more.
does it? Yeah. And you don't always feel better after
No,
after
actually,
doubling down.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, building community with the local LGBTQ group. There are a handful of trans folks in town. A couple of them I count as close friends, and
Mhm.
two of them I see on more or less like a weekly basis. Um, One of the people that ran the group had a kid last year, and they've been very busy raising their kid. And so we don't have as many of those meetups, but we do have Eastern Sierra Pride meetups that are
Mhm.
more of like a general regional meetup.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so funny because I go to those and it's like me and my five friends, and like we are the queer community. Um, so that feels really like empowering in some ways, but it also
Mhm.
does feel kind of like isolating that we're just like, oh, it's just
Just
us.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, hey, it's you. Yeah.
Mm.
So I am thinking about moving to San Francisco this summer to be just part of like a larger trans community, have more LGBTQ community around,
Mhm.
um, and just be around more people in general. I've started to feel a little bit isolated after 10 years working here at Mammoth, and it's now 6 years living here full time, renting year
Crazy.
round.
Been
Right?
a long
I know.
time. Yeah, I'm also shocked too when I blink. I'm like, what? How has it been 6.5, 7 years now that I've been
Mhm,
here as well?
mhm.
Um, I was curious, and thank you for you're such a good storyteller. Like,
Aw,
you're really good at filling in the gaps and like bringing us forward and giving some context to where
well, thanks.
to the actual question I'm
Yeah,
answering asking
I've
you. So
never
I appreciate
considered
that.
myself like a good like oral storyteller.
I
I
think you're great.
like I got a perfect score on like my English SAT. Like I know I'm a good writer, but yeah, I haven't necessarily felt myself as like a
Mm.
good, extemporaneous speaker or like public speaker or even like
Mm.
storyteller.
I
So I
always
really
thought you were well
appreciate that.
spoken, and
Thank you.
yeah, well, I feel like you're really thorough whenever we've had conversations.
Oh, it means a
So
lot.
yeah, I
I'll
appreciate
add that
you.
to my list of skills on my
Yeah, I was
resume.
gonna say that. Clearly, this is an area you should explore a little bit more.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like
Um,
customer service, outdoor education, storyteller. Yeah,
yes.
uh-huh.
um, well, one area I was wondering about, and I feel like this question might come also
Mhm.
for the audience that's listening to this, that will be listening to this,
Yeah.
is that how has it been also, we talked about community, but what about with your loved ones, with your family? Have they
Yeah,
been pretty supportive during this journey as well?
they have. I've
Okay.
been I've been so fortunate, like far more than I expected,
Yeah.
with support, not just from my um, immediate family, but also from my extended family. Some
Oh.
folks which are like, they live in the South in rural Arkansas, or has been a pastor for 30 years, lives in Philadelphia. And I mean, at least outwardly, they are supportive, at least in what they say. Um,
Good.
and so just that alone, I don't know what they think about me, in their private life, But to their credit, they have never, um, yeah, they've never said anything mean or bad or anything like that. I don't think that they necessarily all like understand. Some of my aunts and uncles are almost 80 now. Um, my parents are both the youngest of their families,
Okay.
so everyone else, all my aunts and uncles are older than them. All my cousins, all 30 of them, are older than me, and so yeah, they're all kind of from a different generation. But I've been really fortunate where uh, I only have one cousin who's um, yeah, kind of like a real MAGA kind of guy, and
Mm.
yeah, he's never said anything to me directly. I Before I stopped following him, I saw him post some anti-trans stuff on Facebook, and then I just kind of blocked him.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, my mom was the first person that I told, actually. Um,
Oh.
when I was dressing up at home and just realizing that this was something that I had to do, or else I was never going to be happy ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I called my mom crying one day, and I just told her that I'm a girl and this is something I need to do for my mental health. And I don't know if you understand, but
Mm-hmm.
I love you and I hope that you can be there for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and she has been. She's been such a great support. And my father and I weren't on speaking terms at the time that I transitioned because of the affair that he had with one of his coworkers. He left the family and then divorced my mother um, pretty suddenly when I was in college. And I felt like um, he didn't handle that situation very well, that he didn't handle it in a way that um, respected and honored my mother. He really hurt her. And she's, yeah, I mean, she's never had a relationship since and doesn't want to. And I took that really seriously, and I cut ties with my father for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't remember how it started. But we started talking again. Like I let him know that I was transitioning,
Mm-hmm.
and he had always worked in like Christian higher education, and I didn't know
Mm.
how he was going to take it. Um, but he's been really supportive, like way more than I would have ever expected from who's pretty conservative growing up. But I don't, I don't know what all he's been through. But he
Mm-hmm.
seems surprisingly open minded. Um, and I had the feeling like I don't agree with the way that he's lived his life in all ways. That I don't think that he did the right thing by my mother. Um, but that there are so many trans people, queer kids that don't have a father that wants to be in their life and support them, and to like deny that, to turn away from that, to push him away when he was saying that he wanted to be in my life and support me, that I should that I needed to put some of that stuff aside and just
Mm.
recognize that I was really fortunate to have this man who did want to be in my life, even though things
Yeah.
were complicated. He ended up marrying the other woman. She's my stepmom.
Mm.
So yeah, it's complicated, and
Yeah.
it's still complicated, and I'm never gonna reach like emotional resolution about that. And I've accepted that. It just sucks.
Yeah.
Um, but I tried to put at least like a little bit of that aside to recognize that I was really privileged. to, to have a supportive father as a trans person. And so, yeah, now at this point, we talk pretty regularly.
Wow. You have a sibling, right? A brother?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
Him and my sister-in-law have both been, yeah, really supportive. She's my sister. Like we text back and forth, like we're sisters. I never had a sister before, so when my brother married her in 2019, I was like, I have a sister now. Like, welcome to the family. And I hadn't even transitioned to that point, but so happy to have a sister. Looking back, it's kind of funny.
Really neat. And correct me if I'm misremembering, but was it your brother and your mom? I remember seeing some things on social media where your family was with you during some of your transitioning. I feel like you had some surgery done. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I had facial feminization surgery on October 14th last year.
Okay.
Which involved a brow reduction, changing the shape of my chin just a little bit to make it less square, kind of like rounding off the corners of my jaw.
Okay.
Nothing super dramatic. Like, I think you still recognize me, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
like I had, complete reconstructive surgery to change me into a different person in the witness protection program or something like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, recovery for that was fairly involved. Like my eyes were swollen shut for a couple days, and
crazy.
I pretty disoriented and just like nauseous and sick because of the medications. So yeah, they both came out to Los Angeles. We stayed in a hotel together for Doug and Caitlin were there for I think like 3 or 4 days, and then my mom stayed for 2 weeks until my follow up when I was like cleared to drive myself home. And yeah, having that support was, I mean, I couldn't have done it, like I needed a caretaker, and yeah, for my mom to be able to do it, it worked out with her work schedule. She's semi-retired, works part-time, teaches a couple classes in like the fall and spring semesters. So she was able to, yeah, just like take some time off before her teaching started up. And we got to spend like 2 whole weeks together watching Lord of the Rings movies.
Nice.
And yeah, she's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Got me into it when I was a kid. When I was like 9 in Kenya, they were reading me like The Fellowship of the Ring.
Wow.
Like, I don't even think I could have read the book by myself at that point. Certainly my brother couldn't have. But yeah, we were both, listening to a chapter of The Lord of the Rings every night as bedtime stories.
Nice.
Funny story about my parents back in the 70s when they got married, way before major motion picture adaptation, when it was still kind of like, underground, like niche kind of thing. They were both, huge fans at that time even. And on their wedding program, under ring bearer, they put Frodo. Like in 1977 or whatever.
Wow.
So yeah, OG, second generation, Lord of the Rings nerd right here. I earned it. Okay.
Dang,
Okay.
That's wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So she does like a full day marathon of all the extended versions back to back every year. It's part of her tradition.
That's a long day.
It is. It is.
Wow,
But my
that's
mom is a
impressive.
committed super fan.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've heard of anybody who's fans that go back that far.
Yeah.
That's really neat. That's really cool. I'm really glad that you're able to be with you and that you have the support system, especially with your family members.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that's not common. Not everyone can say that. So
but
I'm really glad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tricky with our parents. Just on a side note, it just got me thinking about there's so much I've learned the older I get as far as just understanding my parents in a different
Absolutely.
way
Yeah.
because I've now experienced some life.
Mhm.
And so not that accepting my dad cheating on my mom or any of whatever their messy relationship went through. But having gone through some messy situations of my own, I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I get
everyone's
shit's
different.
complicated. It's not black and white.
Mhm.
I will never know exactly what was going on at that time, but I think I can look at them as human beings now, not just
Absolutely.
these roles that they had played for me as a child. So
Mhm.
it almost sounds like you're starting to be able to have that relationship with them aside from just the
Oh,
place that they've
absolutely.
held in your
Mhm.
life. And I think that's really special.
Yeah.
Um, so I was wondering, is there anybody else that you can think of that's, you had mentioned one person that was from that punk rock band that you listened to that you were one of the first people that
Yeah.
you saw that
Mhm.
had transitioned openly.
Mhm.
But is there anybody else, like, is there anyone else that you look to that you know of, I guess, in movies or on social media? That if you are listening, or like, what are other examples that I can find um, just to give them inspiration as well? Can you think of anybody else that we can share with the audience?
You're just asking me to list transgender celebrities?
Well,
Uh,
I guess I wouldn't say necessarily celebrities, but even if it's someone on social media or something that you feel like is really representing specifically in the outdoor spaces, though.
right. I wasn't prepared for this question. There's one woman who's a long distance trail hiker, and her name is Lila Harrod.
Mm-hmm.
And she may have been the first transgender woman to complete all three trails in the Triple Crown
Okay.
of the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Appalachian Trail.
I think
I
I've heard
think
of her.
I'm correct in saying that. I
Okay.
don't remember what her Instagram handle is offhand.
That's okay.
We've had some communication over the years,
Oh, cool.
um, and just like, reaching out to her and saying that I really respect what she's doing for representation, um,
Mm.
for trans people in the outdoor space, because yeah, there's not a lot of voices, especially on social media, about that. um, a trans man that I follow on Instagram, his name is Calamia, or I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his last name, but he's a long distance runner, and I think one of the projects he completed was running across America to raise money for trans youth.
Wow.
And I hope I'm not getting your accomplishments wrong. I'm talking off the cuff. I did not prepare with research for this, so
Well,
I just want to put that out
after
there.
we're done recording, and then if you end up researching or whatever, I can always add it in, or like at the end, I can
Mhm.
record an additional piece where I correct anything or add some more context or
Okay,
information.
that
So
would be great.
that's okay.
Yeah, I think that I'm close, or like, yeah, pretty close to the truth.
Okay.
But yeah, when I'm talking about what other people have done, especially, I just want to, be accurate and really like honor those achievements.
Totally. Well, thanks. I always like to ask that question because, especially if there's anybody who's young who's listening, I always think about the people seeing the representation for myself of people who look like me in spaces that I wasn't quite sure I belonged in, or maybe I hadn't seen that those examples of representation before. And so it's always nice to have someone I can look to, like, okay, I'm not the only person who's out here doing it. There's somebody else who looks like me, or maybe can relate to what my experience has been like,
Yeah, totally.
who's paving the
Hmm.
way too. So
Yeah.
if you think of anyone else, like, let me
Right.
know and I can add it
Mhm.
to the caption underneath
Sure.
as well.
Yeah, so we also have like a local women and genderqueer climbers community organization called Flash Foxy.
Yeah, that's true.
That is headed up by some transgender individuals, and
Yeah.
like really supports women and queer people in the outdoor space. They run several different climbing camps across the country.
Mm-hmm.
They have a meetup in Red River Gorge in Kentucky coming up this summer. If anyone's interested in going to that, and I
Yeah.
I would say that I probably see more representation of trans people in like the climbing community as well as the hiking
Mm.
community, more so than like the winter sports community.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
And
can't
trying to think
think of
about winter
anyone in winter
sports,
sports.
you
Yeah.
know, which, yeah, we're here, you know, in the
Yeah.
ski resort town, but I can't really think of offhand, at least, really anybody that's
Me
doing
neither.
that. That said, like I'm not as active on social media as I used to be. I've moved all of my profiles to private because I don't feel that I can ethically justify creating content for tech billionaires that are using that money to disenfranchise my rights and support what the current administration is doing. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm not as plugged in with the social scene as I used to. I used to run a photography page
Mm-hmm.
and be very into landscape photography as a way to communicate my appreciation for nature.
Yeah.
Um, but when the platform started moving towards video content and
Mm-hmm.
monetized influencers and lots of ads, I kind of lost my passion for engaging with the platform like that. And since have just been doing like a private profile for my friends and family, um, post memes and political stuff. I think that's important, and
Yeah.
just be able to message with friends. Use Instagram Messenger and stuff like that. So maybe we can find a list of people that
Yeah.
are doing work in that space and put it in the comments or something like that because
Totally.
I would like to spotlight folks that are doing that, and I'm sure they're out there, but I'm just not
Yeah.
I'm not as aware.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. All good. It's interesting because even when I asked that question, I thought, I don't even think I can come up with any examples as far as in winter sports specifically,
Hmm.
too. So I would have to think about that and do my own research.
Hmm.
One of the last questions I have for you is if there's anything that you could change, like in your dream world, about in the outdoor spaces in winter sports, like
Hmm.
specifically in the sports that you use to recreate outdoors, and
Yeah.
what would you like to see change?
What would I like to see change?
Mm-hmm.
I would like barriers to be broken down. I certainly like with the goal of creating more diversity,
Yeah.
but what I see is that there's all of these barriers that have been constructed that whether they're like physical or financial or even just sort of like conceptual,
Yeah.
that those are the reasons why we don't see as many people like us in those spaces. Um,
Yeah.
that it's a feeling of like, well, I don't see anyone else, so I don't belong there. That's like the conceptual barrier.
Yep.
There's the physical barrier where mountain towns are just more populated with straight cis white people,
Yep.
and you have more diversity in city centers that don't have as much access to nature.
Yeah.
And so that's a proximity issue, um, that's very real as well,
Yeah.
because travel costs money, the
Mm-hmm.
equipment costs money, um, getting trained, for like whether it's rock climbing to like, learn rope safety, or whether it's skiing to like, learn how to stop and turn so you can go up on the chairlift.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's financial barriers. It's probably the biggest one because
Totally.
that touches on kind of all of the others. Like, if you don't have money to put gas in your car, you can't drive to the mountain. If you don't have money to go to the ski shop and buy or rent skis, you can't go to the mountain. Um,
Yep.
yeah. And so, above and beyond just like wanting to see more diversity as a change, I think it's important to recognize why we don't see that diversity, because that's where the change really needs to happen.
Yeah, getting to the heart of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good points. Well, that's pretty much all I have for you, but I want to check in before we wrap up and see, is there anything else that's on your mind that you would like to share or touch on in regards to the podcast or just in general?
I don't know. We're out here, even if you don't see us on social media or wherever. Just know that you belong wherever you feel like you belong. And I've always felt like I belong in the outdoors, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me different.
Well, yeah, I love that. Fuck yeah. It's like my favorite thing to say is like we out here, but it's so true. And I say this all the time. I've said this multiple times on the podcast, but they call it public lands for a reason, because it's for everybody.
For everybody.
We all deserve to be here. And I'll never forget when I first started learning to ski, and people were like, "This is your mountain too. Like, you paid to be here, whatever the cost was, the entry, barrier to entry or whatever. You've gotten
1000%.
through that, and like you deserve to be here just like anybody else. And everyone else is on different levels. They also had to start at the beginning too, but that doesn't mean you deserve to be here any less than anyone else." And I've always really appreciated that and taken that with me in any spaces that I walk into. And just trying to really own my voice and really lean into taking up space, because we deserve to do that. And fuck all of the things or people who are trying to silence us and make us feel like we are any less than what we deserve, because we're all human beings that deserve respect and appreciation.
Absolutely.
And that's like the bare minimum. Yes. I know. I was like, oh, I feel like we wear this on purpose, and I love it.
Maybe a little bit.
Well, thank you so much. This is honestly, I feel like I've laughed, I've cried.
It's been a whole journey.
It has been a journey. Your story
coaster.
has been a journey.
Thank you for listening.
I'm really excited to see whatever ends up coming next for you. And, what I've learned and through my own journey, and something I've said a lot in the podcast and I've said to other people as well, just in conversations related to diversity and inclusion in the outdoors, is that, really leaning into the people and the places that make you feel good.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're supposed to be. And that's going to, if you keep leaning into that, you're going to continue to be in places that make you feel good, and it's going to head you in the direction of where you're supposed to be. And I fully believe in that. And it really sounds like that's definitely been a really pivotal moment for you, was just being introduced to the outdoors. And it seems like that's where you've had some really eye-opening moments as like realizations of being able to really connect with yourself and find peace and find healing. And it sounds like it's still providing that for you. So I just appreciate you. Thank you for I'm just glad that you're still in my life and that you're here. And thank you for also, just letting me and Joe in on being a part of your life. And, we may go however long without seeing each other, but I feel like it's always just been really positive with our friendship. And thank you for also letting us in on your journey. I felt really honored that you trusted us to share with us, especially earlier on. So just know that like we're definitely cheering you on. And I'm honestly always so happy when I see you like posting these pictures of you feeling yourself, and like you're so cute. And it's been really neat to just see you just like fully live your life to the fullest and like live your best life. So I live vicariously through you from time to time when I see that. And it really makes me happy. So thank you for being you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And yeah, please don't stop.
Thank you, Deja. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This has been so good. It's like healing for me.
I'm glad to hear that.
Rachel, thank you so much for being a guest on Black and Wild, the podcast. Thank you for sharing the journey that you have been on of self-discovery. One of the parts of your story that resonated with me the most was how nature has really shaped the trajectory of your life. In moments when the rest of the world feels scary, unwelcoming, and uncertain, nature provides the greatest escape and a place where true life lessons lie. Like you, I too do not see much representation of people like me in outdoor spaces. Well, at least it's few and far between, and I have to seek out that content to find it. But regardless, we are out here, girl. And we deserve to be here and represent just like anybody else. This conversation was so healing for me. I hope it was for you too, Rachel, and those of you who are listening. If there's anything that you who are listening take away from this episode, I hope that it is a reminder that you should lean in. We should all lean in to the people and the places and those things that bring us joy. I would share her social media account with you all, but it is set to private. However, if you want to check out anything Black and Wild related, don't forget to check out blackandwild.com for all things Black and Wild. And be sure to check back bi-weekly for more stories from underrepresented communities in relation to the outdoors. Until next time, thanks for listening.